Okay, so welcome. So today we're going to start talking about algebraic language and formulas. So this is where we start getting away from the concrete arithmetic that we're used to seeing, right? Because we are able to use it, visualize it, it's concrete, right? You can kind of, in a sense, put your hands around it. But when it comes to algebra, we start thinking about more abstract ideas about numbers, ideas about how we do things with numbers. And so the emphasis goes from the concrete to the abstract, meaning now instead of doing the actual method of arithmetic or adding, subtracting, multiplication, division, now we're looking at understanding the process. Okay, and this is where a lot of students really have a hard time, is because they're used to the number crunching, right? Which is the actual method of getting the answer. Where now when you get to pre-algebra or algebra, now it's about the process of how you get the answer. And so it's a shift in your thought process. You go from more concrete to an abstract way of dealing with numbers, okay? It's one thing to say, okay, well, what's 36 times 36, right? And say that that's 1,296, right? And so to crunch the numbers, but it's a completely different idea to understand the algebra that says, hey, what if I have something like this, right? So just as an example, if I have something like A plus B times A plus B, right? How do I handle that? This is algebra, right? We use algebra to handle how we do this. But in knowing how to do the algebra, how the process works and the algebra works when we multiply things like this, because what we're saying is this is just a number, this is a number, this is, A and B are just numbers, right? But if I understand this, well, guess what? Then I understand more about the process of why 36 times 36 is 1,296, because then I can start saying, well, 36 is the same as 30 plus 6 times 30 plus 6, and then by doing this, I understand how this works, okay? And then I can do other things. Okay, so doing the algebra allows me to be able to deal with a more broader topic of mathematics. Okay. Okay. So anyway, that's enough of that. But before we get to all that, we have to understand the language of algebra. Okay, we have to understand what we mean by the symbols. And so we're going to start with multiplication and talk about the different ways to show multiplication when you're dealing with algebra, because now we're not going to be dealing with numbers as much anymore. We're going to be dealing with variables. Variables are symbols that represent numbers. So like A and B are variables, okay? So A represents a number and B represents a number. So when we're dealing with letters, it becomes confusing if you see something like this. Because now this X, is that a variable or is that a multiplication sign? So we came up with mathematicians, we as mathematicians came up with other symbols, like famous mathematicians like Leibniz came up with different symbols to be less confusing. So now, if you have a raised dot, so it means multiplication as well. So these are different symbols for multiplication. So you could put a dot between them. So you have a raised dot. So that means A times B. Or you can use parentheses. If you put them together with parentheses, either around one or the other or both, that also signifies multiplication. Or if you just put the two letters together, the two variables together, that also signifies or connotes multiplication. Okay, now what we don't do is when we're dealing with numbers do that. Because if I'm looking to say, for example, if I want to multiply 2 times 4, I don't do this, right? For obvious reasons. Okay? Because when we do that, we're saying 24. We're not saying 2 times 4. So when we're dealing with arithmetic, we don't use this. Okay? So just be aware. Okay, and that's it. Have a good day.